If I were to ask you, can Jesus do anything? Most likely you and anyone else would say, of course, yes, because after all, he's God in the flesh. However, let's look at scripture and see what scripture has to say. Mark 6, this section of scripture is entitled, The People of Nazareth Refuse to Believe. Mark chapter 6, Jesus left there and went to his hometown, accompanied by his disciples. When the Sabbath came, he began to teach in the synagogue, and many who heard him were amazed. Where did this man get these things, they asked. What's the wisdom that has been given to him that even he does miracles? Isn't this the carpenter? Isn't this Mary's son and brother of James, Joseph, Judas, and Simon? Aren't his sisters here with us? And they took offense at him. Jesus then said to them, only in his hometown, among his relatives, in his own house, is a prophet without honor. He could not do any miracles there, except lay his hands on a few sick people and heal them. And he was amazed at their lack of faith. I'm Franny, a former classroom teacher, and I'm obsessed with helping Christian entrepreneurs grow their businesses, applying biblical principles along with digital marketing strategies to grow their businesses online. This passage of scripture reminds us that the not so secret to miracles happening in your life is faith. The Bible is filled with rich examples of people who had a belief that Jesus could heal them and that through their faith, they went and they sought his healing power. Think about the woman with the issue of blood. She said, just the touch of the hem of his garment, I know it can heal me. And what happens? Jesus feels the release from him. He turns to her and he says, daughter, your faith has made you well. In Matthew 8, this section is entitled, A Roman Centurion Demonstrates Faith. Verse 5, when Jesus had entered Capernaum, a centurion came to him asking for help. Lord, he said, my servant lies at home paralyzed and is in terrible suffering. Jesus said, I will go and heal him. Now we have to remember that the Roman centurions, they were like the dictators. They were the authority in the area. They were not Jewish. And so therefore he feels very humbled and he says, I'm undeserving. He goes on in verse 8 and he says, I don't deserve to have you come, but he does believe. And he says, I know that just a word will heal him. And then, of course, it says in verse 10, Jesus turns to him and says, I tell you the truth, I have not found anyone in Israel with such great faith. Jumping down to verse 13. Then Jesus said to the centurion, go and it will be done just as you believed it would. And immediately his servant was healed that very hour. So let's explore these two words, belief and faith. The word belief is both a noun and a verb form. But in the verb form, it is the action. It is literally a certainty, a trusting that something is indeed factual or true. And then, of course, we know faith in Hebrews 11, it's the certainty, it is the assurance, the confidence, the hopeful expectation that something is indeed true, something you cannot see. So we have a belief in something that we cannot see, and we have faith in that belief that it is indeed true and certain. So, fellow Christian entrepreneur, let me ask you, are you believing for something for your business? And the next question that I'm going to follow up on the heels of that is, are you blocking your blessing by your unbelief? Scripture reminds us that without faith, it is impossible to please God. And when we consider the disciples, the number one reason why Jesus often rebuked them was because of their unbelief. So are you looking at your past experiences or perhaps even past failures and saying, oh, this is never going to work because? Or perhaps are you afraid to step forward in fear and you're saying this will never work and you give yourself 1,000 reasons why it won't work? As I mentioned just a second ago, you're in good company because the disciples were often found in unbelief. So let's unpack the word lie right smack in the middle of the word belief. We have L-I-E. We have limitations, intimidations, and excuses. Oftentimes we limit God and we say, oh, I could never do that. Oftentimes we're intimidated. We say, oh, well, I don't have a following like her. And then oftentimes we give ourselves excuses such as, I just don't have enough time. You may have one or you may have all of those, but no matter what, if you do have any, those are most likely blocking your blessing and allowing you to stay stuck where you are and not being able to step in the fullness of what God has for you into the destiny that he has called you to. So let's think about when a parent or perhaps a teacher, they catch a student and maybe a lie or what they believe to be a lie. What do they say to them? What is the antidote? So in order to combat these lies, we must replace them with truth. Let's consider what Jesus says in Matthew 19. He says to his disciples, with God, all things are possible. Therefore, we have no limitations. Let's consider what David says when he goes to the battle lines to fight Goliath in 1 Samuel 17. He says, I come to you in the name of the Lord. So we cannot be intimidated. We mustn't be intimidated. We can go ahead and face our fears and our own personal giants. And finally, we must replace excuses and stop thinking that we don't have what it takes, because Gideon himself said, I am nothing And what does God say to him? In Judges 6, he comes to him and he says, "You mighty hero, the Lord is with you." So friend, if you're wanting God to do big and exciting things through you and through your business and or ministry, I want you to stop and ask yourself, am I really truly believing, or are there lies, L-I-E, limitations, intimidations, or excuses that are blocking that blessing and keeping me from standing strong in faith, believing that God is who he says he is and that he will do what he says he will do? If you gleaned something from today's message, I would love to hear from you. Go ahead and drop in the comments below. What is one key takeaway? And if you did learn something from this, please go ahead and like and subscribe to this channel for future trainings, devotionals, and videos. I would love to be able to help you grow your business using biblical strategies and digital marketing tools and techniques to grow and shine online.